Modernism and the Modern Novel. Modernism is a complex movement, an international phenomenon, which began approximately after 1910, and flourished in the 1920s and 1930s in Europe. The main characteristics of modernist literature, fiction in particular, it involved all artistic forms, from literature and music to visual art and cinema. New technology and the horrifying events of both world wars make many people question the future of humanity. The system of moral values which dominated Victorian age collapsed. Instead of progress, modernist writers saw a decline of civilization. Instead of new technology, they saw cold machinery and increased capitalism, which alienated the individual and led to loneliness. The new concept of time. Time was perceived as subjective and inner. The distinction between past and present was meaningless in psychological terms. According to Bergson, time is a flow. Instead of perceiving time as linear, we experience a mixture of past, present, and future in the same moment. Whereas most traditional literature had a clear beginning, middle and end, the modernist work is typically fragmentary and relative, favoring subjective perception of the real world. There is the absence of a well-structured plot with a chronological sequence of events. The stream of consciousness. It was the American psychologist William James who coined the term stream of consciousness to define a continuous flow of thoughts and sensations that characterize the human mind. The birth of the modern novel. The new concept of time and the new theory of the unconscious contributed to the birth of the modern novel. One aspect which characterizes modernist writers at the beginning of the 20th century is their desire to make a break with all previous traditions. Through experimentation in form and style, traditional forms are rejected in favor of a direct attempt to represent the workings of the mind and the unconscious. The main stylistic innovations of the modernist novel. The modern novelist rejected the omniscient narrator as a moral and spiritual guide and replaced it by the direct or indirect presentation of characters' thoughts, feelings and memories. Gave more and more importance to subjective consciousness. Understood it was impossible to reproduce the complexity of the human mind using traditional techniques, so they looked for more suitable means of expression. They adopted the interior monologue to represent, in a novel, the unspoken activity of the mind before it is ordered in speech. The interior monologue. Writers like James Joyce and Virginia Woolf adopted the interior monologue to represent the unspoken activity of the mind. Interior monologue, the verbal expression of a psychic phenomenon. Stream of consciousness, the psychic phenomenon itself. The main features of the interior monologue. Absence of introductory expressions like he thought, he remembered, he said. The presence of two levels of narration, one external to the character's mind, the other internal. The lack of chronological order. Use of subjective time. The absence of the rules of punctuation. Indirect interior monologue. It is characterized by the following devices. The author is present within the narration. The character's thoughts are presented both directly and by adding descriptions, appropriate comments, and introductory phrases to guide the reader through the narration. The character stays fixed in space while his or her consciousness moves freely in time. Everything happens in the present in the character's mind. Inner time is preferred to external time.